stand for freedom.
RMS, which is in Stallman, to Mysore. I think it is the first visit to Mysore, and I hope there will be many more visits. And all of you have been eagerly waiting for the past 45 minutes. Yes, sorry for the delay, the relative and traffic. So you all know more about Stallman and what it stands for and its work. So I shall not take much of that time. We shall go straight into his talk, and after his talk there will be a question and answer session which you can participate. So I shall just give the stage to Stallman on quoting this poem of Rabindranath Tagore, which is what he also stands for. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sands of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my father, let my country away. Thank you, and stop.
Before I talk about free software, I need to talk about a terribly humiliating experience of defeat that I experienced last night. You see, I generally try to avoid being in hotels in India because of their system of surveillance. I utterly hate it when I stay in a place and they report me to the police, and they demand also to see my passport. And however, I discovered a sort of loophole in their system, because in fact my visa is in my old passport. So I gave them my passport and they brought it back to me, and later they came and said, we just can't find your visa. And I just stalled them off for a few days until after I left that hotel. And I thought, good, I've defeated Big Brother in some tiny thing. Even though it's insignificant, any victory over Big Brother is something to celebrate. But in the hotel I was in last night, they were so persistent. They wouldn't let me, I suppose they wouldn't have let me go to sleep without my giving them the old passport, so they could double check what the immigration officials checked when I was in the airport, for whatever bizarre good that would do. So, and all this, of course, they justify in the name of security, but it has nothing to do with any useful kind of security. It's not about, it has nothing to do with the danger of anyone carrying out any sort of attack. You can be sure that Muslim and Hindu religious fanatics in India have plenty of friends they can stay with. They don't need to stay in a hotel. So it has nothing to do with security. It has to do with keeping control they shouldn't have. So I hope that people will begin to look at the surveillance that states increasingly carry out and recognize in this the danger that George Orwell warned us about in 1984, the book 1984. So now I can speak about free software. our society encourages people to judge software in shallow, practical terms. It encourages people to ask questions like, is this program convenient? Is it powerful? Is it reliable? Is it efficient? What will they charge me for permission to run this program? And to ignore deeper questions such as, I'll talk, I'm willing to speak, you can turn off the light. Such as, if I use this program, what will it do to my freedom? If I use this program, what will it do to the social solidarity of my community? These are the questions that the free software movement is concerned with. A program is free software if it respects the user's freedom and the social solidarity of the user's community. If the program is not free software, it is non-free, proprietary software, user-subjugating software. Proprietary software keeps the users divided and helpless. Divided because they're forbidden to share it with others, and helpless because they don't have the source code, so they can't change it, they can't even study what it's really doing to them. And often, it's doing something nasty. But just saying that I'm in favor of freedom, that's easy to say because it's so vague. Even Bush says he's in favor of freedom, and Bush doesn't recognize freedom even after he stepped on it and crushed it. So, I really need to say something more specific. A program is free software for you if you, the user, have the 4 essential freedoms. Freedom 0 is the freedom to run the program as you wish. Freedom 1 is the freedom to study the source code of the program and then change it so the program does what you wish. Freedom 2 is the freedom to help your neighbor. That's the freedom to make exact copies and distribute them to others when you wish. And freedom 3 is the freedom to contribute to your community. That's the freedom to distribute copies of your modified versions when you wish. If you have all 4 of these freedoms, then the program is free software, because the social system of its distribution and use is an ethical system, one that respects freedom and social solidarity. But if one of these 4 freedoms is missing or insufficient, then the program is proprietary software, which means that the social system of its distribution and use is an unethical system, and that software should not exist. To develop a free program is, in general, a contribution to society, because with this advance in technology comes ethical treatment of those who use it. But when a program is proprietary, it's not a contribution to society, it's an attack, it's a power grab. The proprietary program is a trap, with the attractive features of the program functioning as the bait to attract people into the trap, attract people to give up their freedom and betray their neighbors. This is wrong, and people should never do it. So the goal of the free software movement is all software should be free, so all users are free. But what makes these 4 freedoms essential? Why define free software this way? Each freedom has its reason. Freedom 2, the freedom to help your neighbor, the freedom to make and distribute exact copies when you wish, this is essential on basic moral grounds, so you can live an upright life as a good member of your community. If you use a program without freedom 2, you are in danger of falling into a moral dilemma at any moment whenever your friend says this program is nice, could I have a copy? In that moment, you will face a choice between two evils. One evil is to give your friend a copy and violate the license of the program. The other evil is to deny your friend a copy and comply with the license of the program. Once you are in the dilemma, if you fall into the dilemma, you want to choose the lesser evil, which is to give your friend a copy and violate the license of the program. What makes this the lesser evil? Because if you can't avoid doing some kind of wrong to somebody, it's better to do wrong to someone who deserves it. Someone who has acted wrongly. We can assume that your friend is a good friend, a good member of your community, and normally deserves your cooperation. By contrast, the developer of the proprietary program has deliberately attacked the social solidarity of your community. So if you've got to do wrong to one or the other, do it to the developer. But being the lesser evil does not make it good. It's never good to make an agreement and break it. Now, this is an example of an agreement that is inherently evil. So keeping it is worse than breaking it, but breaking it is still not good. And if you give your friend a copy, what will he have? He will have an unauthorized copy of a proprietary program. And that's a pretty bad thing. Almost as bad as an authorized copy would be. So, once you have fully understood this issue, what should you really do? You should avoid the dilemma. Make sure you never fall into this dilemma. I know of two ways. One is, don't have any friends. That is the method implicitly suggested by the proprietary software developers. The other method is reject proprietary software. If you don't have a copy of that program, you don't have to worry about what you would say if your friend asked for a copy of it. You're safe. So that's what I do. If someone offers me a program on the condition that I promise not to share it with you, then no matter how attractive it is, I reject it. I say, my conscience does not permit me to accept that condition. So take your evil program out of here. You should reject it too. And we also should reject the propaganda terms that they use to demonize the act of helping your neighbor. For instance, terms like pirate. What do they mean? What are they really saying when they say that if you share with your neighbor, you're a pirate? They're trying to say that helping your neighbor is the moral equivalent of attacking a ship. And morally, nothing could be more false than that, because attacking ships is very bad, but helping your neighbor is good. So don't use their terminology. No matter how other people try to push you to use the term pirate in that way, resist. So when people ask me what I think of piracy, I say attacking ships is very bad. And when they ask what I think of software piracy or music piracy, I say, I don't think I've ever met any pirates, but as far as I know, they don't use computers or play musical instruments, they use guns. So I reject the way they're trying to use the term by refusing to comment on it as if it had that meaning. So that's the reason for freedom number 2, the freedom to help your neighbor, the freedom to distribute exact copies of the program when you wish. Freedom 0 is essential for a different reason, so you can control your computing. There are proprietary programs that restrict even the running of the authorized copies with their licenses. This is not controlling your own computing, so freedom 0 is essential, but it's not enough. because that just means you can either do or not do whatever the code of the program is set up to permit, which means the developer still controls you, not through a license, but instead through the code of the program. So you also need freedom one, the freedom to study the source code and change it to make the program do what you wish. This way you decide, instead of letting the developer decide for you. If you use a program without freedom one, you can't even tell what it really does. And many of them have malicious features. For instance, they might spy on the user. One proprietary program that spies on the user that you may have heard of is called Microsoft Windows. Thank you. When the user of Windows, I don't say you because I'm sure you wouldn't use such a nasty thing. When the user of Windows invokes the menu item to search her own files for a word, Windows sends a message saying what word was searched for. That's one spy feature. And when Windows XP asks for an upgrade, it sends Microsoft a list of all the programs installed in the machine. That's another spy feature. But Microsoft never announced these spy features. They were discovered by others who investigated. So it's quite possible that there are other spy features in Windows that have not been discovered yet. We have no way to check. But spying on the user is not limited to Windows, because Windows Media Player also spies on the user. In fact, it does total surveillance. It reports to Microsoft everything the user looks at. But please don't think that Microsoft is uniquely evil and only Microsoft would do such a thing, because Real Player spies on the user the same way. And it looks like Real Player did it first. After all, Microsoft is more known for imitation than for invention. And lots of companies make spyware. But it gets worse. There's also the functionality of refusing to function, where the program says, I don't want to let you see the contents of this file, even though it's in your computer. I don't want to let you copy part of this file, even though it's in your computer. I don't want to print this file for you, because I don't like you. Well, strictly speaking, the program has no volition. It's the developer that doesn't like you and designed the program to restrict you. These features are called DRM, Digital Restrictions Management, or digital handcuffs. The intentionally implemented malicious feature of refusing to do what you, the user, want, if you make the mistake of being the user of such a non-free program. Now, these features are designed to attack your freedom in two ways at once, at two different levels. The purpose of the feature is to restrict your use of your copies of published works, which is obviously an attack on your freedom and unjust. But the method used is to publish the works in a secret encrypted format, such that the only way you could access them at all is with a proprietary program, and that proprietary program denies your freedom as well. So it's two attacks in one against your freedom. You must never tolerate this. So you must reject these copies that are designed to restrict you unless you personally have the means to break the handcuffs. So for instance, never buy an encrypted DVD or rent one or even accept one as a gift unless you have the free software that is capable of decrypting it. That format was originally secret. They didn't want us ever to be able to write a free program that could read a DVD. but people found out the format, and they wrote a free program. Well, now that program is censored in some countries, like the US and all around the European Union. So you can see they're trying very hard to attack our freedom. You must never go along with this. Never get an encrypted DVD unless you have the free software you can play it with. Now, I'm happy to say that in India it's easy to find non-encrypted DVDs. The DVDs you must not get are the ones made by the official movie companies, which I expect are designed to restrict you. Those you must boycott. Now, of course, you should personally reject any product designed to attack your freedom, but that's not enough of a response, because digital restrictions management is generally imposed not by one company, but by a conspiracy of companies, a conspiracy to restrict the public's access to technology. DVDs are a good example. After some companies designed the originally secret format of DVDs, they set up the DVD conspiracy. And they said anyone that wants to make a DVD player has to join the conspiracy and promise to build those DVD players to restrict the user, just like all the other DVD players. So this conspiracy has certain norms about how to restrict the users, and all the manufacturers participate in the same restrictions. Now, a conspiracy of companies to restrict the public ought to be a serious crime. The executives of those companies ought to be tried, and if convicted,